All right, gang, we are live, and I know we are trying to wait on Miss Cook, and so um, I am going to, if everybody doesn't have an objection to it, go ahead and call our meeting to order. I think that they should be able to get her in to this before we get to any presentations or anything like that. Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I am going to officially, now that we're, and again, I apologize for the length of getting this together, those that may be just watching or it being streamed live, but our Griffin-Spalding County School System Board of Education meeting today, which is the 14th of April at 6 o'clock to order. And you can either place your electronic devices on mute or turn them off, or you can mute your, if you're watching, you can mute your screen there. Several ways to do that now. And last meeting we had was pretty incredible. The ability to be able to do what we're doing and would not be in the same room. For the record, we do want to just make note that this is a virtual meeting that we are having because of the medical emergency of COVID-19. But we will get through this. I've heard that 1,000 times over the last 4 weeks, but it's true. We will. So at this time, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Brown for our Griffin-Spalding County School Spotlight.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, Mr. Chair and colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to present the Griffin-Spalding Board of Education Spotlight. The school today is in the 4th District, represented by my seatmate, a graduate of Tift College, the Honorable Barbara Jo Cook. I want to thank my colleagues for their support in this endeavor as we continue to build morale in our system and highlight the amazing things that are happening socially and academically in our schools. Since COVID-19, I've been able to scroll through various social media platforms, and I want to let you know that we see you Orrs Elementary School, which is a national school of character. I was impressed to see the great things along with the support and progressive ideas which were taking place at 1553 Flint Street. Mr. Chair and colleagues, today we would like to spotlight Orrs Elementary School as our April 2020 Spotlight School.
Congratulations, absolutely.
And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
All right. Joining us with us, and Miss Joni, I think you can bring them in. We have a student from Orrs that is going to be leading our pledge after I say the prayer here in just a moment. Miss Joni, do we have them queued and ready to go?
Yes, they're ready.
Okay, I would encourage everybody to either turn to a flag you have in your home, Miss Kennedy, not the Falcons flag, but or a direction of where you know a flag may be flying. The courthouse being downtown would be a place. And so I will say the prayer, and then Ms. Mullins, can you give us, just for thanking purposes, the student's name?
The student name is Bryson Hawkins, 5th grade student from Orrs Elementary School.
And Mr. Hawkins, we are so thankful that you are here with us this evening doing this, and appreciate you being willing to do that. So
I have a flag, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I like it. I like it. So let's bow for a word of prayer. Father, Lord, we just thank you for this evening. Lord, we thank you for our world, our nation, our state, our community, our county and city, Father, Lord. We pray, Father, Lord, blessings. We pray healing. We pray protection, Father, Lord, over each and every person. Lord, we're so grateful and thankful for those that are on the front lines, that are serving and helping and giving. Lord, pray, Father, Lord, that each and every person, Father, Lord, will continue to do their part in that. And Lord, as we proceed with this meeting in the business of our school system, we pray for your wisdom and direction in all that we do, and we thank you for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Mr. Hawkins, if you could lead us in a pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
and justice.
liberty, justice for all.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins. I appreciate that very much. No, it was a little bit different, and maybe at another time we'll have you back to do it when we're back in person.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brown, may I turn it over to you for our announcements?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair and colleagues, it gives me another great pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to commend our scholar clerks for their steadfastness and willingness to be engaged in this process through COVID-19. To Nick Edgerton and Breezer Flint, the Board of Education says thank you for your service to us and to the community. For those that know me, you know that I am an advocate for brighter futures, and I love when scholars in our district are engaged and involved in this process. Breasia Flint is no stranger to us. She is a dual enrollment scholar, a junior at Griffin High School, and she will provide our April 14th announcement. Ms. Flint?
Good evening, Chairman Dawes governance team and stakeholders. My name is Breasia Flint, and I am a junior at Griffin High School. Please adhere to our evening's announcements. Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020 is Administrative Professionals Day. Tuesday, April 28, 2020, Griffin-Spalding County School System Board of Education virtual work session at 4 p.m. Look out for the link to the Board of Education meeting. Tuesday, May 5th, 2020, the Griffin-Spalding County Board of Education will have a virtual meeting at 6 p.m. Tuesday, did I say that already? I'm sorry. If you are not following the school system social media platforms, please do so to stay updated with the latest information. If there are any stakeholders who would like to be added to the weekly communications from the superintendent and school district, please email him at jim.smith@gscs.org to be added to the distribution list. Last month, the Board of Education approved Griffin High School as the 5th site for the meal distributions. There are now 5 sites. Thank you, Board of Education members. The Griffin-Spalding Board of Education would like to congratulate the graduating class of 2020 for going through these difficult times. Mr. Dawes and members of the board, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Breasia. I appreciate that very much. Board members, at this time, we have a one addition to the agenda, and that is under Human Resources, Personal Actions, under the Certified. We need to add the name Janessica Knight. And with that change, I would entertain a motion for the adoption of our agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Dawes.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any discussion,
Aye.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry?
Is there any discussion?
Yes, we can do that. Is there discussion, Mr. Holmes, or Mr. Brown?
Yes, there's discussion. As I said in the last couple of board meetings when we were down at central office, and as I've said online, I will continue to monitor and look at the things that the superintendent brings before this body as we are approving things. When I look at this agenda and look under the consent agenda, as I look at the different things that are going to be voted on for us to approve, the contract that is coming to us from Mr. Bruce Ballard, Construction Facilities Director, as we look at the company, which is Cornerstone Communications. And they also have sister companies, which are System Plus Telecom and Business Systems Connection. Again, we must start looking for companies and putting the word out there about companies that are representative of the scholars and people and stakeholders in this district. Again, when you look at Lonnie Harper, the Director of Instructional Technology, Mr. Harper's request for the Chromebook case purchase, as we look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 companies that were attached in this memo, I did a little research behind each of those companies. Again, no minority companies, no minority companies. I don't know what it is, but you will continue to hear my concerns as it relates to minority companies. Like I said, Black-owned businesses, men, women, minorities, Black and brown people, we deserve a chance at contracts for this school district. So, Mr. Chair, I just asked, we said the next meeting or workshop, we're going to look at a system and all that. I would like to go a step further. Until we get that system in our school district, I would love for the school district to provide information as it relates to the different demographics of the people who are applying for contracts in our district. I mean, I was able to do it within 45 minutes to look up all those companies and go through their websites, and then go to LinkedIn for profile pictures of those people who are in leadership at those companies. But again, we must make sure that it's equitable and fair across the district and when we are giving contracts to people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your comments, and that is going to be part of our discussion when we start those talks on equity. And
So we're going to wait. We're going to wait for equity conversation to start looking at contracts. We're going to wait 6 months from now.
Well, we need to, as a board, we have to have a workshop and discussion about what that looks like and how it's going to be able to move forward, so that we stay within the laws and don't discriminate one way or another, and for sure. So, but thank you for your comments. And I'm not sure if I get a agreement on the adoption of the agenda. Everybody said aye.
I say aye.
Okay.
I'll vote yes.
Thank you for that. We are now time for our public comments, and I missed a call from Miss Mullins, so I'm not sure if she can let me in on who our first person is, if there is someone signed up for public comments.
There is Mr. Dawes.
Okay, I can hear you now through the speaker.
We're gonna start. I have several, so let's do Miss Odom, Kayla Odom.
Okay, and Miss Mullins, is everyone that is going to be doing public comments able to hear me?
Yes, we're admitting them to the agenda now.
Okay, and what I'll do then is just kind of go over the standards for doing your public comments, just so that everybody has an understanding of what's going on. Okay. I did not get the actual sheet that is sometimes read, so I'm going off my memory. So if I leave something out, please let me know. But when you do give your public comment, if you would give your name, your address, and then your reason for that comment, and then once a comment has been done, if it should be within about a 5-minute range. If someone is going to be talking then on the same topic, we'll then give them a minute on that topic. Want everyone to be able to say what they need to say. We appreciate you being willing to, especially come online and do it in this fashion. It's a little bit different, but all of those comments are important. We will not be responding as a board tonight to those comments. We're not going to be saying yay or nay or all of those type of things. There could be a clarifying question if someone has a question just to clarify what you had statement that you had made. But then we will follow back and get back with you as a system to let you know what the answer to that is or what is going on with whatever topic you may be talking about. Mr. Smith, did I leave anything out from that portion of it?
I think that sounds pretty close to complete.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I make a request? Can I make a request for Ms. Mullins to mute everybody's mic who is not talking? I'm getting a text message that there's some feedback going on online streaming. So if she could mute everybody's mic who is not talking, and then the person who is doing the public comments, their mic be unmuted.
Yeah, we're doing that now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, are you ready for the first person, Mr. Dawes?
Yes, we are ready for the first person.
Ms. Odom, are you ready?
Okay, I'm Kaylin Odom, and my address is 920 Ann Street.
Can I start?
Yes, you may start. Thank you so much.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay, my name is Kaylin Odom, and I'm a senior at Griffin High School. I'm the co-president of the senior class, member of the Beta Club, host of Key Club, and I was captain of the cheerleading team, and I was named 2019 Homecoming Queen. Upon graduation, I plan to attend the University of West Georgia and be a part of their cheerleading program. I'm here today as a scholar who would like to be heard by the Board of Education. Yesterday, I attended a Zoom happy hour with Mr. Brown, and I would like to thank him for having the platform where the class of 2020 would be able to express our concerns. For 13 years, we have been watching graduating classes before us walk across the stage, get their diplomas, and seeing a big smile on their families' faces. We have been waiting for our chance to say we did it and to have the same feeling of accomplishment as they felt. And some of us may be the first generation high school graduates of our family. Another concern I would like to address is senior dues and spring sports dues. The spring sports seasons all got canceled, and they did not get to participate in that, and we did not get to participate in the activities we planned for our senior year. Would money be refunded for those activities? Another concern is relating to prom. Some of us have already prepared ourselves for prom and are not able to get a refund back on anything. Most of us have booked all of our appointments, paid for our dresses and suits, and everything else that we are not able to get a refund on. Last year, I was not able to attend my junior prom due to my family going through a rough time last year, and I was looking forward to this year. If we are not able to have a prom where we have already planned to have our proms, will we be able to have it at another location? Senior prom is the final experience of our high school years before we graduate, and some of the last times we have together before we go our separate ways. And if we have a prom with only seniors, it will be a time where our community comes together after this pandemic. When and if public officials give us an okay, what will be the game plan for Spalding County? I also paid for a Letterman jacket, and the people are not in the shop right now due to the stay-at-home policy. If they're not able to get the Letterman jacket to me or other people that paid for it, will the money be reimbursed, or will my school be able to find somewhere else it can be made? I was excited this year about prom, graduation, and being able to experience my senior year. As a scholar and student at Griffin High, money being refunded to us is not one of our main concerns. Being able to experience our senior year is our main concern. Now I'm done.
Next person that is in the queue.
That would be Kamari Blackman. Ms. Blackman, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
My name is Kamari Blackman. I'm a senior at Spalding High School.
Are you black?
I'm in medical, National Honor Society, student council, and I'm currently student body president for Spalding High School. I also was a member of Spalding High's varsity softball team for 4 years. Also, I was named 2019-2020 Homecoming Princess. I was in a senior happy hour call, and I would like to thank Mr. Brown for the opportunity to hear our concerns. As a senior during this pandemic, this is a very stressful time. Our senior year has been stripped from us, and it seems as if everything that we have looked forward to for 13 years will not happen. I'm just a senior wanting to know what is being done to celebrate our distressed class of 2020. What is the game plan for when public health officials give us the okay? I'm done.
Thank you so much, Ms. Blackman. I appreciate that, and we will be getting back in touch with you.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Mullins, do we have another person?
Next person will be Bennett Cole. Are you ready, Bennett? Bennett Cole.
All right,
There he is.
that's Zach Holmes.
Okay. We're going down to the next one.
Yeah, that's Zach Home, babe.
A minute, I'm trying to find another one. It's Ronald Edgerson.
Mr. Cole did not respond, so we'll go to Ronald Edgerson.
All right.
Mr. Edgerson?
So Ronald
My thing
Edgerson will
on?
start video later. Okay.
Okay, I'll go to the next person then on the queue. That's Erica Edgerson. Ms. Edgerson, are you ready? Within 3 minutes.
I just asked them to start their microphone.
She said something.
Mhm.
Ms. Edgerson, are you ready? I hear somebody. Oh, that's a name.
That's it.
I believe that's it.
Okay, so these are just not on the line, or they're not able to hear us, or we don't know what the situation is?
Not sure what the situation is. They are unmuted to speak to the board.
Yeah. They're just not responding
They're
to the
not
quest
responding
to
to-
start.
Okay. All right, well, we will, at this time, then need to give them just like one more minute to see if any of them do.
Okay.
All right, wait a minute. Miss Edgerson? No, I didn't do it.
Okay, and we're pretty sure on our end, we have the technology right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Hello. Hello.
Wait
Hello?
a minute.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
This is Nicholas Edgerson.
Yes. I was trying to reach Erica Edgerson.
well, we have Nicholas. Let's go ahead and take, he was one of them also, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Edgerson, if you can state your name and your address, and then you have a minute if it has to do with seniors. If it's something else, then you have 5 minutes.
All right. Hello, my name is Nicholas Edgerson. My address is 1256 North 9th Street. I am a senior at Spalding High School. I am in Key Club, Beta Club, Drama Club, and I was the captain of the baseball team and homecoming king. And upon graduation, I will be attending Middle Tennessee State University. Yesterday, I attended a happy hour meeting with Chantel where we discussed senior activities. Today, I will be coming to you asking about cap and gowns and spring sports in relation to the current pandemic that has affected my senior year. The school system needs to develop a plan about cap and gowns. Where, when, and how will the school system communicate with seniors on how we will receive them? My other question is about spring sports. As a student athlete, sports is a major part of my life. Being able to take the field with my 6 senior teammates who have been looking forward to this last ride together since we were kids has been one dream of mine. Due to this current pandemic, how will the GSCS Board of Education address these athletes whose season have been cut short? We will receive a refund for our season fees. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Edgerson. I appreciate you sharing with us. Ms. Joni, do we have anyone else that is?
I also have one more person, that is Sean. Sean, are you ready to talk to the board, speak before the board?
And if you'll just run through the names that have not responded one more time, Mr. Cole. And there was someone else.
All right, there's
All right. At this time, then, we are going to move on from our public comments. And it is time then to board members for our consent agenda. So I would entertain a motion for our consent agenda. Board members, can you hear me? Ms.
Yeah.
Joni, can you unmute everybody now?
Moved. So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Well, I'm not going to call any specific names, Mr. Doss, but I do have a grave concern when I see the list of resigning employees, and you know, I don't know how closely the other board member looked at it, but we're losing some what I have in my opinion some valuable people, and one in particular I brought to Mr. Smith attention, and you know the next thing I know is she's resigning, or that person is resigning. And that kind of disturbs me, because I hear all the time employees say that, you know, what their feelings are, what they think, you know, is not taken into concern. And if they raise an issue, which this kind of validates their fear of raising incidents, because they feel like when they raise issues that they have a target put on their back, and they're like forced out or made it so uncomfortable that they just rather leave than to continue dealing with you know, some of the issues they have to put up with while in this system. I just wanted to go on record that please, ma'am, please, sir, look at that list, look at it closely. Let's not continue to just keep rubber stamping that list, and don't even question or bring up anything about the people on the list. I encourage you to take a closer look at that list that we just got, and you'll see some key people on that list that I feel like you know should not have been on that list. Let me put it like that, because they did have some issues, and probably, you know, fortunately or unfortunately, I was contacted and made aware, and passed it on, as you know I try to do to our superintendent, but you know, to no avail. It seemed like it didn't get I guess resolved is a, for lack of a better word. But I am getting sick and tired of seeing people leave our system, go to another system, and thrive and excel when they could have done the same thing here at Griffin-Spalding. So I just want that to go on record. We're losing too many good people. Too many.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Holmes, for those comments.
Mr. Chair, also, I'm looking for the report that HR normally would put into the packet. I do not have that. So if that can be emailed to me as soon as possible, on the resignations and the reasons, which are not listed on the agenda, but the reasons as to what they feel on their exit interview or why they determined to leave. If I can get that as soon as possible.
Well, the list, everyone except one is going to a new system. And that one is leaving because of a personal reason, which I feel like should have been resolved, but apparently it wasn't. But every person on that list except one is leaving to go to a new system.
And Mr. Brown, you may just have to log in Assembly. You may just need to log in under your name and not just look at the agenda without logging in. If you log in, I think you can see that.
Okay. All right. Let me do that now.
All right. Any other comments before we go for the vote? Okay. I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. We've had discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is Ms. Cook with us?
Aye.
Got Mr. Holmes. Is Ms. Cook still with us? Okay. All right. We will then move down to our presentations and discussion items. That puts Mr. McLemore up for our monthly financial report.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
It's good to see everybody. We have for the financial report, the financials through February. What I tried to do was a quick summary in there about some of our assumptions as we move forward, and really look at the amended budget, just because I assumed that was probably more of interest. When it came to the financials through February, actually everything looks pretty good, and really our situation overall going into the end of the year, we're in a good place to handle this kind of issue that we're going through right now. Some of the highlights I just wanted to throw out there were probably some more obvious things where you knew fuel. We're looking at pretty good savings in our fuel. Add some numbers in there. We have savings in our utilities, substitutes. So payroll is tracking under, and it was tracking under prior to this situation. And then on a lot of the purchasing, we've ended a lot of purchasing. But really what we're looking at is flowing that over to the nutrition fund, and I'll talk about that in a second. Just wanted to highlight on the revenue side of things, the real issues for us right now is the title ad valorem tax. I think this COVID-19 highlights really a little bit of the difference of why you might prefer a property tax versus something that's close to a sales tax. The sales tax equivalent, title ad valorem tax, and really our sales tax for SPLOST projects have done extremely well over the past 5-6 years. But now, since we have a piece of our revenue source related to the actual sale of cars, we're expecting to see that drop off pretty heavily. So on one end, when you have property taxes, it's nice and stable revenue. But on the other end, if it's something that relies on the actual sales to occur, then you can see that can be unstable. So as we move forward, though, our revenues are tracking really well. Our interest is going to go down, but we're already close to 99% of our original budget for property tax, which includes motor vehicle taxes and title ad valorem tax. So for the year, we're doing fine. It's where it's going to be an issue is as we start off the next year's budget and we have the unknown of how July, August taxes from the sale of motor vehicles will play out. So we're well under in a number of operating budgets, and we're going to be lower to some degree in revenues, but not a whole lot. I think our biggest issue is going to be the nutrition fund, and I talked a little bit about that in the write-up. We basically took what the number of meals that we had so far and just used that as our average for the remaining weeks of offering meal service. I know some of that will be adjusted as sites are open, but projecting that out, there's a big difference between serving 7,500 meals a day on average and 1,800. So right now, what we were projecting out as hopefully a worst case on that scenario is a little over $500,000 more negative than what we had used in our budget number. So we're trying to keep some of our expenditures low on the general fund side and look at transferring that money to potentially plug the deficit that would occur on the nutrition side. But as a whole right now, general fund is looking strong. We're okay. And I think we're okay to cover that as well on nutrition. There's a number of potential revenue sources that the federal government is looking at sending. Years ago, we had stabilization funds when we had the recession. To some degree, those stabilization funds offset cuts in state funding. We're looking at getting those kind of funds again, but we don't know if there's an offset in the state funds, if we're just going to receive lower revenues on that end where it's just a trade-off yet. Hopefully not, because that money can go a long way in helping us transition over the next year for some real variability in some of these accounts. Our SPLOST revenue, the last number we received, which was retail month of February, we got in March, was $815,000. That was still strong. I think April's number will be real telling. We're just working on a number of things where departments right now are turning in what they believe are any savings or estimated budget remaining items, just so we can put it together in a more detailed amended budget for the board, hopefully at the next regular board meeting to have for you. But overall, we're fine. We're looking good to be able to cover some of these unknowns that we had. I think moving forward into the actual budget's where it's going to possibly hit us a little harder.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Mr. McLemore?
Thank you, Ryan.
Mr. Chair, if I could take just a moment. This is Ryan's last official night with us as Chief Financial Officer in the board meeting. As you know, he's going to be taking the job of controller at Kennesaw State University. I think he actually starts next Monday, but he has been gracious enough to tell us that he will continue working with us to get this current year budget together. He's well into that process, and Ryan is going to spend some time working with us on that, and I appreciate that very much. So I just want to take a moment to recognize Ryan and the work he's done for the last 17 years with this school district, and the fine way he has taken care of our finances as Chief Financial Officer for these last, 7 or 8. And I appreciate very much the work he's done as a colleague and more particularly as a friend. So thank you, Ryan, for what you've been doing for us.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Mr. McLemore.
All right.
Thank you,
Did we lose Mr. Brown? Does anyone know? Mr. Brown, are you there? I see her name. I just don't see. And did Miss Cook ever get back with us?
I'm here. I just blacked out my screen.
Okay, that's no problem. I'm just making sure we got you.
Ms. Cook here?
All right. We will then move on to Ms. McElroy for our SEL Google Classroom presentation.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm well. All right, so thank you for the opportunity to share some things we have going on with our SEL Google Classroom. Addressing the social and emotional learning is going to be very important during this time. It also addresses the whole child and helps to increase student achievement. Focusing on SEL has never been more critical as we have our shift to distance social and emotional learning. And we'll quickly discuss some of the activities and strategies that we're using to transition from our SEL typical face-to-face setting to our distance learning. We focus on continuing to foster meaningful connections with students and families since we do not get to see them on a regular basis, and we continue to sustain the learning communities and help students through this time. Under our MTSS umbrella, we are addressing PBIS by implementing PBIS at home. We're also addressing student mental health by focusing on their social emotional learning needs, and also providing some resources for RAP services. We've posted some resources in the Educator Google Classroom around food resources, job resources, housing, and other things they may need during this time. Let me change the slide. Some of these issues we've talked about in previous meetings. 1 out of 5 students will face a mental health issue at some point in their life. And students who have already experienced these type of issues are going to be more vulnerable during this time and during this crisis. We'll change the slide. And learning includes both academic and social competencies. We focus on the social emotional learning, understanding and manage emotions, students being able to set and achieve positive goals, feeling and showing empathy for others, establishing and maintaining positive relationships, and making responsible decisions. Students during this time have expressed some feelings of anxiety, being worried, and just having some uncertainty. So with these SEL Google Classrooms, we're able to help provide resources that they may need. And even though our buildings are closed, students are still facing some emotional issues and they need that additional support. Next slide, please. So like I was saying, students are expressing some stress and being anxious and worried. They're definitely feeling the effects of the school closure. They have worry over their family, the pandemic, sometimes motivation, school-related issues with their schoolwork through the virtual platforms, and just not sometimes completing their assignments and needing better ways to structure their schedule to be able to do that. And we're providing that support. We've seen some student fatigue during this time. It's sometimes becoming a little bit overwhelming for them. And what sometimes can be accomplished through face-to-face, they're struggling to do in a virtual environment. And some of them are being very successful, but we're still seeing the need for students who are having some anxious, having anxiety and being overwhelmed to get them additional support. So we designed these Google Classrooms to address some of those concerns. We have activities and lessons around mindfulness, being able to be mindful in that moment and understand what's going on around them. We have different activities that they engage in, reflection journals that are posted throughout the week, virtual lessons that we have through our Google Meet, and support requests. Students can request additional support through Google Forms. We provide COVID-19 facts and resources in kid-friendly language so that they're able to understand what's going on, and also access to community resources that they may need. Next slide. Here's an example of the social emotional learning for elementary. There's different activities around mindfulness, and you'll find some consistent themes through our elementary, middle, and high school Google Classrooms. There's an example of how to create a schedule. Sometimes they're missing that structure from what they had in school, and we work with them on how to create a schedule for at home and different skill practice. Next slide. Here you can see a different lesson that was posted around coronavirus for students from K-5 through Brain Pop. That was definitely appropriate for their age. There's also a post from the facilitator, Kanita Taylor, that gives them some things to reflect on around gratitude, and there's different lessons. There's some things that students will respond to the comments and make comments around things that they're thankful and still grateful for. Next slide. Here in the middle school classroom, you'll see activities for students to maybe have a virtual field trip since they are at home, different activities for them to do so that they can engage in those through technology. We have Kahoot games in our virtual classrooms, and they really enjoy that. Mindfulness, as well as some breathing activities to help with anxiety and stress. And you'll see some of the comments on the next slide where students are able to talk about how it helps them. Here you see activities where we help middle school students create an at-home schedule. Again, they were trying to adjust to their new normal in the virtual setting and working from home. You'll see lessons around knowing your feelings. Some of the students created a positive behavior matrix for at home. This week we're working on expressing feelings, and we'll be continuing to work on understanding the feelings of others. So different content around what they could possibly be experiencing and how to effectively and appropriately express those feelings. Next slide. And you'll see here an activity that was posted around mindfulness. The students did respond that that felt relaxing. It helped them to be calm, and how they really enjoyed some of these resources that we're providing from them. When the students make comments, we are sure to make sure we're providing feedback to those students, as well as on the assignments that they're completing in the Google Classroom. Next slide, please. And you'll see some of the similar themes through our high school social emotional learning classrooms. You have virtual classes as well as different journal prompts that help to reduce anxiety and help them to reflect on what's going on around them. Next slide. Here you'll see some resources that were provided by the facilitator of this class, Mr. Craig Howell, and he also helped them to come up with a well-being plan, helping them to stay on schedule, how they can stay connected with their peers during this time, what kind of hobbies that they can engage in that are safe, and how to not worry and think about things that they can control during this time to help them have a plan for their well-being during this time. The Balanced Educator Corner is for our staff, as well as some parents can join. It's providing resources to get them to also be mindful during this time, how they can be expressing what they're still grateful for, even though we're in a time of uncertainty and it's very challenging. Some of the responses was, this was wonderful. They expressed some things that they were grateful for still during this time, and the ability to still connect with the students and staff and their colleagues. Next slide. We provide resources here around some facts around CDC and the coronavirus that they provided, as well as some wrap services around how to access community resources in Griffin around food, jobs, and any other needs that they may have. So it's resources that have been provided for them. And there were some comments as well about how they appreciated this as well. Next slide. And here's some examples of what some students created. We have PBIS. We've talked about this at previous board meetings about expectations for school, as well as even classroom expectations. And this allowed them to create expectations for their home, getting up in the morning, getting to school, cleanup time, time to relax, homework time, meal time, getting ready for bed. So this was some of their routines that they're going to have. And their expectations was to be able to help out, own your behavior, make the choices, and to do this every day. So that helps them to have a connection to the expectations they already had at school and how they can apply that at their home. And here's another example on the next slide of another student PBIS at home matrix as well. And they were able to create these through the Google Classroom platform. You can go to the next slide. All students and their parents can request additional support through the Google Classroom. So if they feel that they need additional support because they may be worried, they're anxious, they just need someone to talk to with those things, so they need support. I know one student expressed that they've been worried because they can't go outside. They're worried about coronavirus. They're worried about people losing their jobs. Another student expressed that they're having a hard time balancing their new schedule and the workload. So we make sure we provide them and connect them to the right resources. So far, we've had a work week since this was launched, and we have 48 elementary students that are enrolled in the Google Classroom, 134 middle school students, 46 high school students, and 23 educators. And we are going to continue to promote the resources so that students and our staff are aware of the resources that are available through those Google Classrooms. So far, we've had 2 elementary students request additional support from our team, 8 middle school students, and 1 high school students where they've actually put in a request to say, hey, I need some additional support. And we make sure that we are going to connect back with them. And they fill out a form with their name, their email, and the best time to contact them. Here you have the codes for those classrooms, as well as the facilitators for those classes if you join or if you have any questions. Our cell phone numbers are also provided in the Google Classrooms in case students needed to call and get some additional support, or parents even needed to call and connect to get some additional support for their children while they're at home. We are available during our work hours, and we also provide additional numbers for outside of our work hours if they needed some additional support. All right, so if you have any questions about our Google Classrooms, then it's a good time that you can ask. If not, you can always send me an email, and the information how to join those Google Classrooms are in the presentation.
Any questions, board members?
Yes, sir. I have one, Chairman Dawes.
Yeah, Mr. Holmes.
Yeah, I've had a young man to contact me. He lives out in the, as we used to say, in the boondocks in the county, and he doesn't pick up Wi-Fi or I guess what you call it, a hotspot you can use sometime. That doesn't work. So what are students supposed to do in that case? I'm asking Ms. McElroy, or either our IT people. Lonnie, what are their options?
We do also have options for them to connect via the phone. If they have a phone, we have cell phone numbers that they can call based on their different grade band. There's a number that they can call. So elementary has a number for a parent or the elementary student to call, middle school and high school, as well as even staff if they need support. There's a number for them to call for each grade band. It's located on the website and it's also been in the communicator document as well.
To make it simple for me, could I have someone, Mr. Smith, just email me those numbers? I think he's in middle school, this one particular person. And that way I won't end up sending it to $10 somewhere. So thank you for that.
Any other board members, questions?
I have a question, Mr. Dawes.
Sure.
Ms. McElroy, I know I talked with Mr. Smith several weeks ago about something, and do counselors have office hours like teachers do, I guess, these days? How's that working?
Well, the counselors, they report with their principals, and I do know that they have been having classes as well as Google Meets, as well as virtual sessions and office hours as well. But I'll
I'm just kind of surprised that the numbers are so low as far as parents and kids calling in that need additional help. That kind of tells me that maybe the word is not out. I don't know how that's distributed. So
we've only launched it for a week, and
okay, well that means that answers that question.
Some students may not have requested support, but
sure.
was already working with students prior to us having the SEL Google Classroom. So we were already providing some support to students we're already assigned to. So those are students who may have requested support, even though we already have a set amount of students that we're already working with.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Cook, if I might, excuse me, Ms. McDonald, if I might, can you hear me?
Yes.
To answer your question directly, at the elementary level, elementary counselors do have office hours the same as the elementary teachers, which are Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 and 1 to 3. And I can tell you that our elementary counselors have been abundantly in touch and communicating with their students through a variety of means throughout this pandemic. But to answer your question directly, yes, they do have office hours, 9 to 11, 1 to 3, Monday through Friday.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I will also add that the secondary school counselors have office hours as well. That's on their website, and you can communicate to parents and students as well as part of their daily schedule.
Thank you.
I'd like to jump on with that and what Ms. McElroy is doing with Project Aware. The Project Aware team and technology are still monitoring student devices for life alerts and possible threats and sharing those with the counselors. And the counselors are still following up with parents and reaching out to students at that point. So it may not be the students reaching out directly through the platforms like Ms. McElroy is talking about, but they're still getting that assistance from the counselors when we notice that their activities leaning towards depression and self-harm.
Cool. That's great. Thank you.
Awesome. Any other board members?
Somebody tell Dr. Warren he had a guy standing behind him who looks just like him.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. McElroy. All right. We will then move on to Mr. Smith with our GSCS response to COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you've just seen an example of one of the really excellent resources we have out there for our students during this very trying time. And I think as you heard from Dr. Sauce, Dr. Warren, what counselors are doing, and what Mr. Harper also mentioned, there's a lot out there being done right now to support students. And as I've talked to principals, I know that they and teachers are contacting students as well to see if things are okay and see what they can do to help. So maintaining that contact, making sure that students still feel connected to the school has been a very important part of this. And I'm very appreciative to Ms. McElroy and her group for putting together that social and emotional learning Google Classroom with a variety of resources that are being used for the benefit of our students, staff, and families. So thank you for that. We do want to go down a list of topics on things we're doing to respond to this pandemic. These are very unusual times, as you are well aware. I think the community is aware. The governor has basically said that we're not going to have any more in-class school for the remainder of this school year. It does not. We are allowed to do online distance learning. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But as far as going back into the school building for the remainder of this year, that has been ended at this point. And when we'll be allowed to go back into the building for school is we're hoping at the beginning of August, but that's going to depend on circumstances at the time. And we'll be monitoring that as we move along and making plans for that. There's a lot of considerations, actually, given the way the school year has ended. And I think you'll hear from Ms. Jones and Dr. Kennedy and others, Dr. Sauce, Dr. Warren, about things that are being discussed in terms of how to end this school year, given that we basically walked out of school on March the 13th and have been doing some online stuff since then, but it's not the same. And so and I think a lot of the things that were asked earlier tonight about how seniors are going to be impacted are going to be addressed here in just a moment by Dr. Warren as he talks about some of the class of 2020 senior items that are under discussion right now. So Dr. Warren, if you'd like to kick this off with the class of 2020 seniors discussion, those items, and anything else you would like to add as far as secondary education.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Back on April 1st, Governor Kemp closed school for the remainder of the school year. Prior to that, we thought we would be returned to school on April 27th. But unfortunately, that's not going to happen. So with spring break being last week, today was only our 4th work day since the governor closed school for the remainder of the year. So at this point, we've been meeting with the high school principals, Dr. Kennedy and myself. So we don't have fully developed plans yet, but we're working on developing those plans in full. Again, today was our 4th day back. But I do want to go over some information with you on a couple of topics as it relates to seniors. We're looking at about 296 seniors at Griffin High, about 302 at Spalding, and about 15 seniors at AZK. Graduation options for all 3 schools. Administrators will be meeting with their senior class officers, and they will be meeting with those students to discuss their thoughts and their concerns, to give input. Also, administrators will gather input from each senior and their parents about the graduation ceremony. Seniors and their parents will receive a survey via email on tomorrow, April 15th. And that survey, we want them to respond by next Tuesday, April 21st. District and school level administrators will review their feedback and make a joint decision for all 3 schools. Regarding senior items, class rings, invitation caps and gowns, each school uses a different company. Griffin High School, they use Johnston's. Spartan High School, they use Herff Jones, and AZK uses Balfour. On last week, the companies offered different options for a virtual graduation ceremony. That's been used for the last couple of years with colleges and universities. Very different when it comes to high school. We're in the process of setting up meetings with the different company representatives and exploring those options to provide to our students. As it relates to baccalaureate services for all 3 schools, they will be conducted virtually with the guest speaker and a senior speaker being recorded, and with that video being broadcast to the audience. As in the past, Griffin High School and AZK will have a joint service as they've done in the last several years. When it comes to award programs for seniors, they will be conducted virtually with administrators and counselors providing the following via recording and it being broadcast to the audience. A welcome, a description of each award, and they will announce the name of each student or students that receives the award, and hopefully we'll be working on providing pictures as well. When it comes to announcing the valedictorian and salutatorian, videos will be made to include both students to make announcements. That's again, Val and Sal, we're going to make videos to honor those students, make announcements, and broadcast that on the internet, and also post on each school's website. Caps and gowns. AZK students in the process of ordering caps and gowns at this time, or a student can just order a diploma if he or she chooses. Griffin High School, the caps and gowns have been ordered and we're awaiting delivery. Spalding High Schools, the caps and gowns have been ordered, they've been delivered, and they will be distributed to students at a later date. Yearbooks. At Griffin High School, they are awaiting a delivery date for their yearbooks. At Spalding High School, they have received the yearbooks and they will plan to distribute those yearbooks on May 21st. As it relates to prom, Griffin High School received a full refund from the Port Center, which was the contracted host of their prom. Students and parents will receive a refund. Spalding High School. Unfortunately, Spalding High School is only able to receive a refund of $7,000 of the $17,000 that it was paid in advance to Southern Exchange Ballroom. That was their contract to host for their prom. Seniors will receive a full refund. All of the students will be credited a ticket for next year's prom. So if you return to Spalding High next year, your ticket will be credited for next year's prom. Unfortunately, the proms at both schools will be canceled. And a lot of thought went into that in terms of cancellation of the prom. Mainly thought about safety of students as well as adults, a liability of students and adults being exposed to COVID-19, trying to work hard to accommodate other activities such as graduation and closing and preparing for opening school next year. And we thought it would still be a dangerous venture to bring a large number of individuals together. And we anticipate when the shelter in place is lifted, there being a gradual release in terms of number of individuals or adults that can congregate for an event. So that pretty much covers the work and items that we've discussed thus far when it comes to graduation, baccalaureate, awards program, caps and gowns, yearbook, as well as prom.
Mr. Chair, I have a question or a suggestion.
Oh.
Yes, sir. What's your suggestion, Mr. Brown?
I spoke with Mr. Doss the other day. I had a constituent that called me in relation to the school system, Board of Education, doing something to kind of celebrate a lot of what other school districts are doing to celebrate their graduating seniors. So I gave the suggestion of, I love the way how Mr. Smith did a recorded video message to the parents and to the scholars. That was a really great gesture. And I think the same thing should happen if maybe we can do some type of graphic on the Megatron that congratulates the 2020 classes and the logos of Griffin High, logo of Spalding High, and logo of AZ Kelsey, and then do another video message that sends it out. We also have the digital, because I know a lot of money goes into graduation, putting those ceremonies and everything together. So maybe we can use some of those funds to do the digital display boards on North Expressway and maybe in other places that can, that will show the, how the school district is celebrating them and, giving them their kudos in these uncharted waters and difficult times. And so that was a suggestion that was brought before me by a constituent, and as a representative of the people and a voice of the disenfranchised, I am passing that message along to my colleagues and to the superintendent and cabinet. So I would love to see the Megatron ideal used, as well as some bulletin boards going up as well here in our great county. Thank you.
Just to add to that, Mr. Brown, I saw where Westlake High School,
yes,
they've contracted with a digital board company, to show each of their graduates in their cap and gown. They celebrate them that way, and that's what I was gonna add to this conversation as well. I know people are not going out in restaurants and things of that nature, but if we could explore something else just to celebrate the children and their accomplishment, that I think that would be meaningful in a time of disappointment.
Yes, sir. I took notes on both of those suggestions, and I will follow with those suggestions with our principals. Also, I want to make note and mention that the young man mentioned a events about sports being canceled. That was a Georgia High School Association GSCS ruling, unfortunately. We have to abide by what they say. But also, the young lady did mention about her spring sports refunds and whatnot. I will pass that information along to Dr. Holt, and I've already informed the principal, Dr. Lowry, of that. So they will be reaching out to Ms. Odom about that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Warren, for taking notes and for making sure that the scholars who came before us today, that they do get a response back from their schools. So we greatly appreciate that, sir.
Yes. We do want to serve the kids. It's a very, very unfortunate time we're in, very tenuous. But again, Ms. Odom will be reached out to, also Ms. Blackman. And once we get a definite plan together, I know Ms. Jones will come on that shortly. We will reach out and inform everybody in our community where we stand to have response to their questions.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, Dr. Warren, can you get me the contract that Spalding High signed for the prom venue?
Yes, sir. I will about getting you a copy of that, Mr. Shepherd.
I'm not sure we're going to settle for 7,000 out of 17.
Thank you, Mr. Shepherd.
Okay.
I would agree.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do want to also say that I am in complete support of some type of digital board acknowledgement. I know we can do our own, and I'm sure that we can come up with the funds to be able to do something locally here.
I agree. I agree too. Also.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for those suggestions.
I think with our Facebook and social media thing, Mr. Smith, I think those are great avenues, because I've heard so many people participate in the meetings now that they can just pop it up on their phone or on their computer. So I think it'll reach a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of options out there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for those.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Anything else you want to bring up about secondary education?
That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go down to the next item on the agenda, which was the food distribution. And I'm going to ask Mr. Akins to talk about where we stand on the food distribution program.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Good evening, Chairman Dawson and board members. Did want to come back to you today to let you know how we're progressing with the meal distribution. As you know, prior to spring break, we were serving about 1,800 students. We had added a couple of prep sites, and one that we did look at and was looking at, and Mr. Holmes brought up at the last meeting. We did open up Griffin High School as a distribution site today. We prepared for 2,200 students. The final count that I received this afternoon is we served 2,047 students. So we did have an increase of roughly 250 students there. We're looking at other ways that we can expand this. Part of the issue that we're running into is staffing and being able to prepare a lot more meals. with our nutritionists out there working extremely hard. Our managers are working. Nutrition line workers are working to prepare and to bag and get all of these out. And I know, we look at this and say that's 2,000 out of 7,000. But there's a lot of difference in trying to prepare the way we are with multiple days and then what we do on a daily basis through each individual school. Plus having staff at each school to do this. And with the COVID-19 and the concerns that we have, not being able to bring everyone in that we would need to due to health concerns, due to the risk factors with the age groups, care that give for others with those risks. As a matter of fact, today we were not fully staffed with all 6 of our sites. So we were still able to pull this off today. As I said, we had the 2,200 meals prepared. Had the 2,200 prepared and able to serve 2,047. But we can possibly, if we can, get our full staff. We had several that were out sick today and over yesterday. I had 3 of my managers that have been working that were out sick. So the leadership was there, not there at all sites. We're trying to have 2 at each site. We had working with 3 sites that just had one manager, but again was short-handed altogether. So I think it was a good job there of increasing the number. We're still doing our best to try to increase the numbers within our capacity. I'm just not sure, as I said, with the difficulty in the staffing that we're able to go a lot higher. But we did do these, as I said, we increased, added Griffin High. The other 4 schools stayed close to what they were doing. They may have fallen off a few, 40 or 50 or so, but then we did pick up an additional 332 at Griffin High. But as I said, pulling from some of the other sites, we increased roughly about 250 students.
Mr. Smith, I believe Mr. Aiken's Chromebook is older than mine.
Anyone have any questions about our service today and the direction that we're headed?
Did everybody kind of get that?
Yeah, I think his Chromebook's been at happy hour.
Yeah.
I do want to express
Yeah.
to you that we are getting some concerns from some of our
He's going
nutrition
a lot, yeah.
staff members
Well, he's
of
at happy hour 1.
the exposure.
Anthony, we get it. We get it.
them. So
I think this is spooled up.
the staffing is a struggle for us. So we are working as hard as we can to try to work within those shortages to increase what we can do for our students.
All right.
Let me. I do want to ask this question. So during spring break, we donated items to the Salvation Army. How many scholars and families?
Questions?
During spring break, we donated food items to the Salvation Army. When we donated those items to the Salvation Army, I would like to know how many children or how many scholars.
Hello.
We can. You want to finish your question, Brian?
I think he's still lagging just behind. So Centel, go ahead.
I think it is.
All right. So the question is, maybe he needs to interpret or something, but the question is, how many scholars and families did we feed during spring break through Salvation Army?
I believe the new. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I believe the newspaper quoted that number somewhere around 1,200 packets were handed out that Monday. Anthony, does that sound about right?
He'll answer you in about 5 minutes.
I think Anthony's gone.
I think his Wi-Fi may be considered boondocks.
Y'all need to get him a new Chromebook.
Yeah, he up there where Andy Griffin, that oldest at.
Hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
There we go.
Perfect.
Hold on. I've changed.
You even look better.
Thanks, Miss Sue.
All right.
Okay.
How many did we feed during spring break?
We actually only fed, we donated between us and City Church, we donated enough for 2,200 meals. I think they had a little over 600 show up.
Wow.
All right, but do you and I just say that I asked that question because there were other organizations that were able to serve way more scholars and families than that, and that's why on the 31st I brought that up, and it seems like I was ignored or whatever the case may be, and so we donated food, and only 600 families showed up. When if we would have donated it to other organizations as well, split it up, we would have been able to feed way more people and not have leftover food.
Now, what happened to the leftovers, Mr. Akins?
Well, the leftovers
for spring break.
Yeah, the ones that were donated by City Church, the sandwiches and stuff were not usable. We could not accept those back because of the amount of time they had been out and the regulations we have. The things that we donated was basically the breakfast items. Those are Pop-Tarts and things of that nature. Salvation Army still has those items that they're using to distribute with their meal packages that they do every day.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, I understand, and I think we need to look at kind of some of the differences. And as I stated earlier, and I know I was breaking up, that we feed 7,500, and if we're talking about on a daily basis at our schools, and we're fully staffed with all 18 schools, and we're feeding one meal, the preparation is completely different than putting multiple days and things that have to have a shelf life and those kind of things. So they're very difficult. And when we say that, again, you may have someone that fed 3,500 people, but they fed 3,500 meals. We're feeding 18, 20, 22,000 meals in that one.
Right.
So I mean, I know you may have a total in the number of individuals, but the number of meals that we are actually putting out there, it's kind of different than just doing a one-day meal where we can prepare in a kitchen and people come to receive.
And I understand that, because a lot of the meals that a lot of the other organizations and people are doing, they're doing it every day. What I'm just saying is, if there are items that we can donate to other programs, let's just get that done. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
If there are items that can be donated, and whatever the case may be, can we please get it done to help the greater good of our community? And I know we're not going to be able to feed everybody. We're not going to be able to touch every child. There's regulations, there's guidelines, but let's try something different. Let's try to do something that we have not done, and let's donate to other groups around.
And as far as the donations, I want to make sure that this is clear too, and Mr. McLemore can help me out on this, is the school system cannot donate food. What we donated was where someone had donated to us and we were able to purchase for this. And the things that we were able to purchase were not things that we would totally be able to serve, because we are still bound by the regulations of the federal food program, and they've relaxed some of it. But in order for us to do the meals that we're doing, they have to meet strict guidelines that
Right.
someone outside the school system doesn't have to meet.
Right.
So again, there's a lot of different things that go into it. But what was donated was not donated out of school funds, because we can't do that. We can't use tax dollars to donate out. So that was where someone had donated just some money, and we were able to purchase items through our vendors to put out there.
To put out, but exactly, you were able to purchase from the vendors to put out there, but it could have gone to other places, not just the Salvation Army.
Well, that's true. We tried to centrally locate what we were doing without the different parts. And I know they were Salvation Army and,
City Church.
Well, I drew the blank on Lieutenant Paula Blevins.
Yeah.
She was reaching out to some of the other organizations. I know she reached out to 5 Loaves, 2 Fishes. She told me she knew the person at the.
And that, Mr. Aiken, that's good. But I sat on this call on the 31st, and Mr. Holmes did too. Called names of folks that were doing stuff, and you just didn't follow through with it, and that's fine. That's cool.
No, that's not true. That's not true. We worked with a community organization that has a large footprint, that had a number of sponsors and partners.
A large full footprint that got 600 people. So come on, man.
I think the paper said it was more than that, and this was a multi-day meal pack on top of that.
I do need, are we done with that? Any other questions for Mr. Akins? Because I do need to go back to Dr. Warren for a question.
And I got a question for Dr. Warren as well.
Okay. Dr. Warren, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. What was that?
I want to make sure I clarified something in my thought process. And if I was questioning, I thought there may be a few others that may be questioning it. I heard you say that we are looking into what the companies are offering for virtual graduation, but that isn't our number one thing at this moment. We're still hoping to be able to have an actual graduation if that were to be available. Is that correct?
If it were to be available, we want to be prepared on both ends with the virtual and some later dates in June, July, perhaps August for a traditional graduation. Yes, sir.
Okay. I thought that was the case. I just wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir, that's the case.
Same question. Thank you.
Okay. I'm not sure who's next, Mr. Smith.
Is that finish up the food distribution? Because I want to finish it up with this. As Mr. Aiken was talking, we want to expand this as we can with the capacity that we can to produce the meals. And as he mentioned, we had some difficulties with staffing, with the sickness, concern about safety, et cetera. So we're looking very closely at what our capacity is to produce these meal packets and to match our distribution system with our ability to do that. We are looking at other locations to distribute meals, but it is going to depend on our ability to produce those meals in terms of getting the food stock from our providers, from our suppliers, and our ability of our staff to come in and prepare those meals. So that is going to be a consideration as we move forward, as we try to expand this.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, Mr. Doss, Mr. Chair, to me, it seems like if we had more kitchens open, that would lessen the load on the people that are preparing it. I don't know, because I know that's a lot of bagging and a lot of preparation. I'm just trying to think out loud a little bit.
Well, the ability to open the additional kitchens has to do with our ability to bring staff in.
Correct.
That's willing and can come in to prepare those meals.
Correct.
That's what Mr. Aiken was saying about today. We did not have as large a staff today doing that as we've had in some prior weeks. Now, they did a 4-day meal pack. They did over 2,000 of those. They prepared about 2,200 of those packs, and 2,000 of those were actually given out today. Our ability to prepare at more sites is going to be dependent on the ability of us to bring in nutrition staff to do that. And there are federal and local guidelines on who we can put in those kitchens. So it can't just be anybody in there preparing food.
Right.
But we are looking at how we can expand that with other parts of those regulations.
Great, thank you.
But that's going to be a limiting factor for us, so that we have to work through.
All right. Are we ready for distance learning?
I'd like to go to distance learning now with Sarah Jones, and she can talk about the program we've got right now with distance learning, packets, and the like. So Sarah, where do we stand on that?
Good evening. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I've been to share, give an update regarding distance learning. It's what we're referencing and what we call the continuous learning plans that I've shared with you at the prior board meeting. Those continuous learning plans in Google Classroom, as well as learning packets if individual students needed those paper packets. Those plans have continued on daily with our teachers working with students in those Google Classrooms, as well as working with students who need those individual print copy packets. We've continued with the high schools, and really all the schools have continued with Chromebook distribution where needed. Today, I know we had packets that were available for pickup for students in need of those. So all of that is continuing in the same way that it has been from the last time that I updated you. What I will say that I'd like to share with you and piggyback just a bit on what Dr. Warren said. We did meet with high school principals today and shared their plan moving forward with credit repair for seniors only. We will have credit repair opportunities for grades 8 through 11 that are in credit-bearing courses as well, but the time crunch need for what we need to do with seniors needed to go ahead and happen. So that's another senior opportunity, certainly for any senior that needs that. So the principals will be communicating with the teachers, and that will be moving forward at the beginning of next week. In addition, we are working on final edits of what we're calling an end of year, the Griffin-Spalding end of year guidance document. And there are 5 main areas within that guidance document. The first one being instructional services for students. The second one is summer learning opportunities. The third are school year recovery opportunities. The fourth are end of year activities. And the fifth are an extensive list of FAQs that come from a myriad of questions that either Kimberly Green has shared that have come off Facebook, or principals have shared that they've had questions with, or any additional questions that we may have received. We've been compiling this FAQ document as well. So within those 5 main headings, we have a great deal of guidance on the continuous learning plans through the end of the school year, grade calculations, credit repair, as I mentioned, class rank, val-sal calculation. We've got pre-K registration process information in there, as well as building out summer support for students and that fall support for students as well. The end of year activities are listed there, and our goal after sharing that information with Cabinet and with our with instructional services for feedback, and all principals have had their eyes on that as well. We will have a follow-up meeting tomorrow with those same groups, and principals will put their last, give it a last look and give any feedback, so we can get this information to Kimberly Green to put it in a format where hopefully it can go out in the first part of next week. So that's right now a 12-page guidance document before really any formatting has happened. So we just appreciate everybody having hands in that to really work to meet the needs of students and staff and our families. So that is coming very soon, and the continuous learning plans again will continue on through the remainder of the school year. So did anyone have any questions about those items?
Board members?
No, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Smith, anything else?
Okay, appreciate that. And there are a lot of things right now that instructional services, you heard Mr. Jones mention, that are looking at right now to finish up this school year. There are a lot of decisions to be made. A lot of it is local choice under the way the state has put it together. Some is going to be the way the state dictates it too. So we're working very closely with them on that. This is a very difficult way to close up a year, and we're trying to do this for the best benefit of all of our students and families, and as we move forward, plus also looking at what all of this means in terms of how we open next school year and what we do to make sure that our students don't have gaps because of the way this year ended, and be able to work on those as we move into a new school year. So all of that is understood, that we have to be able to think about that as we're moving along too. I'd like to ask Dr. Kennedy if she has anything that she would like to add at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. A lot of the things around what's going on currently has been shared. So I do want to thank Sarah and Dr. Warren and Mr. Akins for those updates. As Mr. Smith has indicated, we are, while we are in the midst of all of this and trying to close out the year, we are preparing for next year. So we have had scheduling meetings with schools where they're preparing the scheduling and course electives and opportunities for students to select courses going into the upcoming school year. All of our schools have completed their budget meetings in preparation for next year's budget. And this week we've been hosting department budget meetings as well in preparation for that. So a lot of work is happening. I do just want to take a moment to commend all of our staff members for the great job that they're doing during this challenging time for all of us. And also a big thank you to our parents as well, who are working at home with their students on these continuous learning plans. It's definitely appreciated.
Wonderful.
Okay. Dr. Sauce, anything to add on elementary education?
Yes, sir. Just a couple updates. I'd like to also echo those same sentiments, Dr. Kennedy, and just how immensely proud I am of all of our staff in Griffin-Spalding who's responded to this pandemic, especially our elementary staff. Mr. Brown, you mentioned some things you're aware of, you've seen on Twitter and whatnot around ORS earlier in the meeting. Just to also echo those sentiments, we have a teacher from Beaverbrook, an elementary teacher, who very recently had signs produced on her own accord for each of her students in her classroom, personalized messages about how she misses them and can't wait to see them. And she took the initiative to go and post those on the front yards of every single one of her students, just so that they know that their teacher misses them. ORS as well, they weren't able to do this, but they were planning to have a convoy where they were where staff members, 25, 30 staff members at least, were planning to drive through the neighborhoods of their school to honk and wave signs and greet their students. They didn't get to do that because of the shelter in place being issued just before they were scheduled to do that. But Cowan Road staff at Cowan Road Elementary did do that before the shelter in place was ordered. Same sort of thing, 25, 30, 35 or so staff members who got together on their own accord and did a convoy through neighborhoods around the school to greet and honk at and wave to their students to let them know their staff misses them. We have a number of elementary school staffs where the entire staffs have recorded video messages that their media specialists have put together, one video montage to send out to all of their students electronically, so that all of the students could hear a warm message and greeting from all of their teachers in one collection, one video montage collection. Those are just some kind of feel-good ways that some of our staffs thought outside the box to stay connected with and make sure their families and students know that they're missed, they're loved, they're thought of during these really unprecedented times. We of course have to think outside the box in times like this. Aside from that, just a few kind of procedural updates to update the board on. We do have a revised pre-K registration process and set of dates that we've adopted, and we've just started to publicize. Unfortunately, this pandemic hit right in the window of when we would be doing our normal pre-K registration. And just to remind the board, pre-K is that one grade level where prior to we don't have any contact with those families until they come forward and they register and we know who they are. Not like a traditional first or second grade planning where you know who the students are and they're already in your building. So we have adopted a revised process with social distancing and also using some of the online features of registration for pre-K registration to happen starting April 20th, another date on April 27th, and another date on May 4th, which we've just recently publicized. And we thank Ms. Green and her team for helping us do that. I'll also be meeting with and discussing with elementary principals this week. We have a meeting scheduled to just begin the conversation as well about potential virtual fifth grade elevation ceremonies, virtual kindergarten elevation ceremonies, what that might look like, as well as potentially some in-person elevation ceremonies for fifth grade and kindergarten, especially when the time is appropriate that we can do that. Don't have definitive plans yet for what that may look like at each school, but we also want to recognize that our fifth grade students, as well as our kindergarten students, have really important transition ceremonies each year that we're already going to begin conversing about how that can look for them. We have a fifth grade transition framework that the board may recall that we adopted. Likewise, Dr. Warren and his secondary team did something similar with eighth grade students as well. That we've now in our second year of implementation. We're going to be talking with counselors tomorrow and also principals later in the week about how we can take some of the components of that framework and implement them virtually during this time. There are a number of transition experiences that are important for our fifth grade students to still have take place, even if it's virtual and we can't do some of these experiences in person. So we're working on a way to adapt that framework now virtually, with more to come soon. So those are a couple updates. One last thing is also we're going to be working with our schools to adopt some sort of a process in May for students and staff to come and retrieve their personal belongings with some parameters that have to be followed. So more to come on that too, but our elementary principals will be working on those plans soon as well. So those are a couple elementary updates.
Dr. Sauce, I'd like to
Yes,
just
sir.
say thank you for taking the time to share some of those smaller things that the schools are doing. Hearing some of those things that to me is important to me. And some of those montage videos or the collection videos that are being done for the entire school, sharing that with us, I would appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'll get those for you, Mr. Chair. And you know, this pandemic has just reminded us that we just have the highest caliber of folks who work in and support our schools in this school system. And those are just a few examples of how and why we just really have the highest caliber human beings that work in our district. I've been so impressed and so appreciative and so pleased. Obviously, I work closest with our elementary schools, but this certainly hasn't been exclusive to elementary. We've just seen these examples time and again during this pandemic.
Sure.
Thank you, Dr. Sauce.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's go to our human resources and Ms. Dobbins and talk about our recruiting and feeling of our employment issues this year.
Yes, principals continue to conduct virtual interviews, and so we are moving along with our hiring processes. Griffin-Risa had scheduled a job fair for April the 25th, and Stephanie Gordy is considering whether or not to make that a virtual event or to schedule it at a later date. So we are continuing to work on our staffing needs for next school year. And, you know, as you can see, we're making some progress, but we still have jobs to fill. Additionally, for employees, we have open enrollment starting April the 20th through May the 8th. So that is for all benefits other than state health.
Thank you.
A lot of things are still going on even in the business world. So I'd like to ask Mr. McLemore if he'd come back in and talk a little bit about any of the budget issues, because we're working very hard right now, trying to move through that the best we can too.
Yeah, I think we highlighted on the last meeting, typically what we're doing, we're about to wrap up all of the departmental budgets this week, looking at tomorrow to finish that out, because ultimately the game plan is to get it as settled as possible on the expenditure side as we can without revenues. Some of our conversation with the delay was that we were going to take our midterm allotment and possibly use that as our revenue number and tweak a couple of the allocations in there, especially for TRS, and possibly look at doing an estimate for that title ad valorem tax. But for the most part, moving forward with those assumptions in place as we look at building a budget. But right now we're still going through our budget meetings as scheduled. And we're about to wrap that up. And then, of course, part of this will be bringing the board into the conversation as well. I know we missed our board retreat where we were going to talk about a number of things, but we want to do that as well once we gather all the information we possibly can gather, just to present it in a coherent format for everyone. But also just mentioned earlier about the amended budget, just getting an accurate number for everybody on that as well. But things are just, they're moving along, moving forward, and we're going to get that information to the board.
Okay, any questions on that?
No, thank you.
All right, I'll then go to Kimberly Green and talk about our communications and some of the items that we have going on in that area.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So over the break, we've been updating our website, social media channels regarding the food meal distribution, information for parents and guardians to pick up their child's medication if they have any left at the school, as well as the distribution of printed learning packets for the grade levels that are using printed packets. This week, we're going to release information about the online pre-K registration, as Dr. Sauce mentioned. We're just finalizing the Spanish version of the flyer, and that will go out tomorrow. We're also releasing the Educator Hall of Fame applications for the fall. I'm also going to work with Dr. Warren in terms of finalizing and communicating the plans for whatever is decided for the class of 2020. So those are just some of the key things we're working on. I'm also working closely with our school communications ambassadors. All the information that's distributed from our office, we send it to the school communications ambassadors, who in turn share it on their social media channels. So we've been in very close contact with them, and we feel like all the communication is going well. We're also continuing to send out the communicator, which is an employee newsletter. Instead of Mondays, we're sending it out on Fridays. And we're also sending out communication on behalf of the superintendent as needed. So, and one more thing mentioned during the discussion regarding the billboards for the seniors, I'm also researching that. I went in and started looking at information regarding billboards as a possibility to honor our graduating class. So
wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions about any of those areas?
I just have a question, Mr. Smith. I just have a question for Ms. Dobbins.
Okay.
Stephanie, during these hard times, I'm curious as to, I've had principals tell me that they're really worried about their teachers and their families, obviously, as we all are, and our families that are involved in our system. But some of the husbands of our female teachers have lost their jobs. I was curious as to how our employees are able to reach out for help, and how we can help them. And, I'm just really worried about a lot of people.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. I know these are hard times for a lot of people. And we have been trying to make sure that we communicate using the communicator, like Kimberly referenced, to put resources out there. Miss McElroy, of course, through Project Aware, can provide some emotional support and that type of thing. We've been sharing all that we can. Perks at Work is a program that we have through our benefits broker, and there are lots of different things where there are discounts available and that kind of thing. But we also have the resources that we provided to all the schools at the beginning of the school year that have detailed information about what's available in the community.
Right.
So we've tried to make all the information available that we know about to support employees.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Smith, I just have a question for you. With all the packets going out, especially in the elementary schools, and I'm worried about our buildings having enough paper, or they're probably already over their allotments as far as the amount of paper they're using to print things. So,
we've been making allowances on that.
Okay, very good.
We understand, and we're going to work through that.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
We are. We've been sending more out there.
Thank you.
Board members, any other comments or questions for Mr. Smith? And then Mr. Smith, I'll allow you to close.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair and board, and the community as well that's watching, I think in the last few minutes you've seen a real tremendous demonstration of the commitment that the Griffin-Spalding County School staff has to students, staff, families, community during these difficult times. This is not the way that anyone wanted a school year to end. This is a hard way to do it. It leaves a lot of gaps. It leaves a lot of things left to be done as we move forward, and we're aware of that. But I want to tell you how proud I am of the staff and the work that has been done over these last. We're beginning our 5th week out of school now. We walked out of school on March the 13th and haven't been back since. And except for the things we've done with packets and meals and that kind of thing. But this is a hard way to do it. But I'm very proud of the work that's been done by our staff. I had a chance today to go around to our schools, and I was able to speak to at least someone at almost every one of the schools, not every one of them, but almost every one of them. Teachers, principals who are out there on the ramps handing out packets at the schools of printed materials for parents to pick up, and the excitement that they were seeing and felt in that. Got a feel for how they felt that the distance learning was going. They felt very good about what was being done, what the teachers were making available. We have to encourage our students and families to take advantage of that as well. But they felt very good about the work that's being done and the concern that's being shown by the teachers for their students. And I heard several stories about parents even calling up the teacher to kind of get on to the child about to get the work done. And so they're very serious about it. And I really appreciate that. The work that they're doing with the meal distribution is phenomenal. And while we do have to work within some practical limitations, being able to serve that many packets today, over 2,000 packets of 4 meals, actually each of those had 8 meals per packet today. And that's a lot, but they're doing it. And we don't know when that's going to end. We're sheltered in place through April the 30th, but school's going to be out. We hope it's going to open on time in August. But we're looking for several more weeks of this situation in our community. But I want to thank our cabinet in particular, but I also want to thank the principals, their staff, their administrative staff, and the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the bus drivers, the nutrition workers, the PTs, maintenance workers, technology work. You saw the work that Mr. Harper has done tonight putting this together. And we'll get some of these bugs worked out. But they're working very closely with our schools to make this distance learning work. There's a lot of work being done every day. I can tell you it's a lot harder to work this way. But I appreciate very much what every one of these individuals is doing, because they're putting their heart and soul out there every day to make this thing work. So thank you for your support, and we will continue to work to make this the best year end that it can be, and take into account the fact that we need to be able to celebrate as well. Our community needs to be able to celebrate what our students have done too. I know that's a big part of the healing process that the community goes through this, and we want to be able to have those events that allow us to celebrate and feel normal again, whatever normal becomes. But we plan to work through that and continue to do as much as we can to support this community.
Wonderful. Board members, there are some information items that are in your packet: the monthly facilities and maintenance report and the construction renovation progress. There's obviously the announcements that have already been given, but they're written for you to be able to have. It's a couple of quick things. I will be getting in touch with you probably tomorrow about our next executive session that we need to have, and continuation of that talk. If you have topics or things, we have the upcoming workshop on the 28th, and then the May board meeting. If there's things that you'd like to see on those agendas, make sure that you reach out to me and get with me on those, so that we can see how that progresses and how we can make that happen. I think that's everything I needed to go over. I wanted to then open it up for our board member comments, and what I'd like to do is do it in the order in which you are appearing on my screen. And so Ms. Sue McDonald, you're up first.
I just have a quick question for Mr. Smith. The next meal distribution date is?
Next Monday.
Okay, that's what I thought. And thank you so much. And I just wanted to, again, Dr. Sauce and Dr. Warren and Sarah and Dr. Kennedy and the entire cabinet, thank you so much for what you're doing and what you have done and what you will do to finish out this school year. And I totally agree with Mr. Smith. I'm sure it's more tiring to do it this way than it is the old-fashioned way like we did it for years. But I just wanted to say a very heartfelt thank you to all of you for what you're doing, have done, and will do in the future for us to close out the school year.
All right, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much to Mr. Smith and to the cabinet for all that they're doing during these times. You guys are most certainly appreciated. And I want to thank the young scholars that reached out to me, and which prompted me to actually do the Zoom meeting, was them wanting answers and wanting to talk. And so I greatly appreciate them reaching out and feeling comfortable enough to reach out to their board member. And lastly, I want to remind everybody that I count, you count, we all count. Be sure to complete your 2020 census. Be sure to go out and complete the 2020 census. I have a graphic that was designed. So go on and make sure you complete the census. You can do
Yeah, I
it.
saw that.
You
Looks
can
good.
do it online. You can do it over the phone. You can do it mail in. But be sure to complete the 2020 census and to just keep everybody updated with what is going on here in Spalding County and what's going on in the state of Georgia. The primary was moved to June 9th. So June 9th, just keep to all those residents out there. Just stay updated what's going on, and thank you all for everything that you're doing. No further comments, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Barbara Joe, I have you next. Ms. Barbara Joe, can you hear me?
I'm not sure you can hear her.
Okay. And then I don't see where Mr. Holmes is still online. Is he
Mr.
here?
Holmes said he got knocked offline. He's trying to dial in.
Okay. All right. If there's nothing else at this point in time, board members, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye, or saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, staff, for all of your hard work. And this, I know it's a little bit longer doing it this way, but it helps us